Our chalice lighting brings us words of hope that come to us today from the great theologian Howard Thurman, who speaks of this moment and of what wonders persist even in the struggle. Whatever may be the tensions and the stressors of a particular day, there is always lurking close at hand the trailing beauty of forgotten joy, of unremembered peace. Indeed, may this chalice burn for the forgotten joy, for the trailing beauty, for the unremembered peace, brought forward into this very moment to hold us each in gentle care, illuminating every corner of even the very weariest of hearts.
God knows what is hiding in that weak and broken heart. Guess you kissed the girls and made them cry, those hard-faced queens of misadventure. God knows what is hiding in those weak and sunken eyes, a fiery throng of muted angels, giving love and getting nothing back. Oh, people, help the people. And if you're homesick, give me your hand and I'll hold it. People, help the people. Nothing will drag you down. Oh, and if I had a brain, oh, and if I had a brain, I'd be cold as a stone and rich as the fool that turned all those good hearts away. God knows what is hiding in this world of little consequence, behind the tears, inside the lies, 1,000 slowly dying sunsets. God knows what is hiding in those weak and broken hearts. Guess the loneliness came knocking. No one needs to be alone. Oh, save me, people. Help the people. And if you're homesick, give me your hand and I'll hold it. People, help the people. Nothing will drag you down. Oh, and if I had a brain, oh, and if I had a brain, I'd be cold as a stone and rich as the fool that turned all those good hearts away.
Good morning, and welcome to River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Reverend Amanda Weatherspoon, your associate minister. This is a place of community, spirit, and service. Hello and welcome to those of you watching on YouTube Live right now, those of you who may be watching on YouTube later, or even listening on the podcast, wherever you are and whenever you are. This is a space made holy by each one of us. If you're joining us for the first time and you'd like to learn more about our community, please feel free to shoot an email to us at membership@rruuc.org, and we'd love to connect with you and talk with you more about our programming and all of the ways to be involved here in this community. Here in the month of January, our worship and spiritual theme is imagination. The ways that imagination shows up in our own hearts, in our communities, in our wider world. What are the possibilities and what is the potential? What is the imagination imagined by those long ago and the imagination of all of those to come? For this morning, we gather again in that spirit. We gather once more to celebrate and remember all that Martin Luther King Jr. has brought into this world. All of the ways that we each change the world in the wake of that story, in the wake of that promise, and the challenges that are with us now still. So on this day and every other, as always, come, let us worship together.
Hello and welcome to the Ladd Family Movie Studio, where I'm ably assisted by my two filmmakers, Ruth and Josiah McDonald Ladd. I wonder if you look at this box, it looks a little old, right? It looks like it's been around a long, long time. The story we're about to tell is a story that has been around a long, long time and been told by a great many people across a great many ages. And so, it's time to begin. Our story begins in a frightening time, in a place where people fought and fought and fought about who had power and who had safety. It happens in a desert between one great city and the next, that was full not of food and plenty, but of dryness and of sorrow and of death. The desert was a dangerous place, with a great many sorrows lurking around every corner. And it just so happened, in this dangerous, boulder-strewn place, that a traveler came, going along that dangerous road from the great city of Jerusalem toward the great city of Jericho. As it happens, when the traveler passed, he was encountered by two robbers who emerged out from behind the boulders on the path. They beat him and they kicked him. They hurt him and they took everything he owned. And when the robbers were done with him, they left him on the path, suffering as if he were dead. Into this sorrow came a traveler, another traveler, one coming down from the great city of Jerusalem. He was a priest of the temple, a wealthy man with respect and authority, loved by all the people in the city, respected as one whose choices and whose power held great authority. And when the priest came along the road and saw the traveler lying there as if he were dead, beaten and bruised, he moved to the other side of the road and kept on walking past. It came to pass then that another traveler emerged, this one a helper at the temple, one who worked for the people of great power and authority, one who moved the authority and the power so that it could serve the masters of the temple. When this man came along, the wounded person in the middle of the road, he too took his law books and his words of great wisdom. He crossed to the other side of the road, and he left him still lying there, bleeding in the dust. Finally, as our traveler was nearly dead from exhaustion and from pain, and from the suffering that had occurred, another traveler came upon him. This man was a Samaritan, a person who hailed from another country. Now the Samaritans and the people who lived in Jerusalem, they fought and they quarreled unto death and bloody suffering. The people despised each other, and a Samaritan would have been viewed at this time as exactly the person those from Jerusalem were at war against. But when the Samaritan, the stranger from a different land, came upon the suffering man, he helped him to his feet. He gave him a cloak. He put him astride his very own donkey and led him onward gently and with great care to the city of Jericho, where he gave an innkeeper all the money he had and more money than he could spare, to ensure that that wounded traveler might have all the safety and the security he needed to make his way through this very scary time and onward toward all that awaited him in life. And so the question that the Rabbi Jesus posed when he first told this story to the Jewish people so very many years ago is simply this: who then is the man's neighbor? Is it the one who worked in the law books and presided over the holy things, the one who did everything right in the temple but walked right by when his fellow human was suffering? Is his neighbor the powerful one themselves, the ones who accumulated money and authority, the priests of the holy places, who walked right by when encountered by another person suffering? Or was his neighbor the stranger from a different land, one whom he perhaps would never have met without the pain that they shared together, who stopped and gave everything so that one wounded man might have a new chance at a new day? Thank you for sharing this time with us. It is a blessing to be together. After being gifted, as we just were, by the able camera work of Ruth and Josiah McDonald Ladd, it is indeed our great honor to lift up what it is to be in community, to build the bonds of connection, not perfection, and to do it again and again and again, no matter what history and these our days throw at us. There is so much to be grateful for and so much to connect each other with in this, our congregation. Today, we are grateful for the loving service and the gentle care of Sherry Blanchette, our longtime Director of Communications, who has announced her retirement coming up in the next few weeks, where she can fall headlong into the embrace of a new grandbaby and all of the adventures that await her, for loving service for a community she helped create. Our gratitude extends beyond her retirement and on into all that awaits. We're also grateful this week for the Manna Food Drive taking place this day at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation, our partner church in Kensington. Drop-offs can be made this afternoon, and a list of the items that Manna Food Center is most desperately in need of is included in your e-weekly. We're grateful for the partnership that makes that generosity possible, for the chance to do what we can, when we can, how we can, with all the love in our hearts. Our new member joining ceremony is also taking place this afternoon at 11:30, and if you find yourself feeling called to be a part of this beloved community, growing and changing with each addition to our number, please consider becoming a member. If you email membership@ruuc.org anytime before 11:30, I can get you the link, and know that each and every one of us, wherever we are, is welcome in this place. Finally, we know that our city, our nation's capital, is locked down like we have not been since 9/11, where National Guard troops are quartered in the Capitol for the first time since the Civil War. We hold the hurt and the anxiety and the hope. And while most allies and advocates are asking that no counter-protests, no engagements with the impending violence take place from a safe distance, you know that you can give to support the homeless population displaced in the city at this time, to support agencies like our own extending the offering recipient, helping the community through the pandemic and beyond. And you can reach out to your community, to me. You can reach out so that we might make it through together. Our joys and our sorrows today are for all those in harm's way. This week, we lift up all those working to protect our city, for the legislators and the custodians, for the soldiers and the public safety officers, for customer service professionals, for the planners and the organizers and the public servants of every stripe, for the homeless seeking warmth amid a forest of fencing and the business owners struggling to get by one more week, for those among us who weep for our city, for those of us who wonder what might come next, for everyone in state houses across the nation, and for the government workers waiting anxiously for a new day, for all those elected and appointed and yet to be inducted, for the unemployed and the seekers and the searchers. We light a candle, we commit, and we pray.
I now invite you into a time and a place and a space of presence, of meditation, and of prayer. Where you're at right now, you can root down deep, perhaps lowering your gaze or closing your eyes, finding a way to be where you are in this moment. Spirit of life and love, we come together once more in a time of chaos and once more in a time of confusion. It seems like those times never really end. Here we are once more, existing on the edge of those times, in that space of anticipation, in that space of not knowing. But Spirit of life, we know that this is a moment in which we are also becoming. We're not merely existing. We're not only waiting. We're not just anticipating. We are being. We are transforming. We are changing. On this morning and on this day, our hearts are lifted up to those who are on the front lines of this pandemic that is relentless, that continues here in the 10th month. Retail workers, grocery workers, those who work in healthcare, those who are first responders, those who don't get to stay home, those who are fearing loss of their business, loss of their income, loss of the ability to provide for their family and for themselves. Our hearts lifted up. Our hearts go out to those who are policymakers and lawmakers, those who hold so many of the strings. In this country, in this world, may our hearts turn toward generosity, toward sustainability, as we turn toward one another. Our hearts are lifted up to those who are houseless, those who are facing eviction, those who are struggling right now. We turn toward them as well. We are all a part of this society. There is no one on the outside. What affects them affects all. As we wait, as we move into this time, we do this knowing that we are held in something larger than ourselves, even if that is only one another. We know there is a love holding us. There is a love holding all we know, and that we can rest in this love. Time after time, age after age, we can trust. We can have faith. We can have hope. Because we know that it is within community and within the love and the trust we have in one another that we will make it through time and time again. And although we cannot fix everything, we can be held. May it always be so. Ashe, and blessed be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings that may free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Each month at River Road, we get the opportunity to practice our generosity. And this is a very generous and giving community. Extend the offering is an opportunity that we have not only to give generously, but to partner with one of our community organizations. Our community organizations range from those who deal with issues at home, those who deal with issues in our backyard, those who are impacted by policies, and so much more. This month, our community organization is La Clínica del Pueblo. Those of you who have been at River Road for a while know that this is a long-standing community partner. In these times that have been so uncertain for all of us, those most impacted are the ones who are at the front lines. And La Clínica is there time and time again for this community and so much more. Here in a few seconds, we'll hear from the executive director of La Clínica, who will share more information about what this wonderful organization does in our community and beyond. River Road has a strong partnership, and many of you have been a part of and participated in this partnership. We've hosted food drives together. We've hosted toy drives. This is an organization whose roots run deep in this community. And our support of this organization goes so far and is so needed, especially in these days and especially in these times when those who are impacted the most have the least protections. We are being asked once more to show up, to come together, to support, and to be in partnership and community. So now I'll turn it over to La Clínica del Pueblo to share more about their mission and their vision.
Good morning, River Road. This is Catalina Sol. I'm the Executive Director of La Clínica del Pueblo, and I really wish I was having an opportunity to say hi to you in your beautiful church with your wonderful congregation, as we've had the opportunity to do every year. But here we are in this new phase of service and health and justice, and it is still a wonderful pleasure to be able to wish you a very happy new year, to thank you for all of your support over multiple years, and especially in this past year, which has tested us in so many ways. And I'd love to be able to tell you a little bit about what La Clinica has been up to in this 2020 and now 2021 pandemic year. The community that we serve has been extremely impacted in a negative way by COVID. As you know, Latinos make up more than 25% of the cases of COVID here in the Washington metropolitan region, and many of the deaths. So the health issues, the job loss, the food insecurity, the extreme distress caused by this confluence of health and economic issues in 2020 have been a tremendous challenge for our community. And in addition to have the racial inequities and the exclusion of immigrants so extremely highlighted in this year in which we've also finally started calling people in our community essential, has just been a remarkable tension. I think that we have said, and I don't believe we're the first ones that have said this, but COVID didn't create these inequities, but it has certainly laid them bare. And at La Clinica, I'll have to say that in 2020, we didn't expect to be expanding in any particular way, and COVID has been a tremendous expansion for us, stretching us in ways we didn't think that we were capable of. First, to deliver services apart from each other. Delivering at least half of our staff is working remotely, providing mental health services, health education services, support groups, Facebook Live pages, just figuring out multiple ways to continue to reach our community and create safe space in the virtual world. And another half of our staff continue to show up every day to work. Many of the culture of our organization and how we get things done having to be reinvented. And certainly risking their lives. In March, we didn't have enough masks. We've been operating with our staff for a full year, with just now being able to have the vaccine available to us. So when we talk about our staff really being heroes, we mean it in the full sense of the word. We know that our vision of the world, the vision of the world that we share with you at River Road, is not shared by all, and that we will be facing ongoing uphill battles to be able to realize our vision of health as a human right for all. But we know that the pandemic has proved us right. If there's anything that we understand now, I think as a community, is how important inclusion is, how important health is, how important community is in keeping us all safe and healthy. And I really do sincerely hope that we will have an opportunity with you in the months to come, the weeks to come, to be able to have closer contact. But in the meantime, I'd like to tell you that your support this year to our staff, to our building, to our community, to the safe space that we have been able to create together has made a remarkable difference. And we do hope that we can continue in our partnership in the journey that this year will take us into. Best of wishes, and thank you for your love, for your music, for your food, for your commitment to justice and to community. We love you, River Road.
Thank you so much, La Clinica. And thank you to all of you who've supported La Clinica over the years. This is a deep partnership of people helping people. As you've just heard, they've had to stretch really far in this pandemic year, as we all have. But the beauty is that we get to stretch together. What we give goes so far to creating healthcare programs, providing resources, assistance, and education to those who are at the front line, who are least protected in our society. As always, there are many ways to give at River Road. For the Extend the Offering, you can use text to give 73256 as always, but be sure to note La Clinica as the receiving organization in your text. You can also go online to social justice giving at rruuc.org/socialjusticegiving and be sure to find La Clinica. There you'll find more information about this organization and ways to give directly there. All of our offering will go to them today. What we give goes really far in building this beloved community that we've worked towards for so long. However you give and whenever you give, please know that we build this brick by brick, and the only way we can do it is together. In these times and all others, we are needed, we are depended on for all of our well-being, now more than ever. As the music plays, please give as you are willing and able.
I will rise with all my daughters. I will rise against my foes. I will rise with all the mothers. I will carry all their woes. I will rise to fight for freedom. I will rise though faced with fears. I will rise against all hatred while my eyes are veiled with tears. I will rise for religious freedom, for a rich diversity. I will rise for all the weary, for each lonely refugee. I will work for all our women who deserve equal pay. I will work for all our children who will wait a better day. Sisters, oh, stand with me. Rise up hand in hand. Oh, stand with me, and we will fight to spread love across this bitter land. I will rise for love and justice, that we may see a better day. I will rise in peace and service for our world in disarray. I will rise with all my brothers for all those who cannot stand. I will rise with all our fathers who have lost a home and land. I will rise to build up bridges for this broken world we see. I will tear down walls between us that divide you and me. Brothers, oh, stand with me. Rise up hand in hand. Oh, stand with me, and we will fight to spread love across this bitter land. Oh, won't you stand with me, and we will fight to fit hand in hand. Oh, stand with me, and we will fight to spread love across this bitter land. I will rise.
One day in 1954, a young scholar who had almost completed his doctoral work at Boston University took a walk across the Boston Common, past the empty hilltop where those convicted of heresy once met their end, past the now manicured lawn that once served as pasture for Puritan sheep, past all that history and heresy, past the memory of blood and power and hope and tears, the young man walked across the Boston Common, stopping finally at the heights of Beacon Hill, where he stood at the headquarters of the American Unitarian Association, there just a little bit early, for a meeting with the president. He was there to inquire to the president of the American Unitarian Association about the possibility and process of becoming a Unitarian minister. That young scholar's name was Martin Luther King Jr. Before he was a reverend, before he was a doctor, when he was a young, brilliant man looking for a launching place and a base of operations for a ministry that would change the world. Years later, Coretta Scott King said that in relatively short order after that day in 1954, she and Martin came to see that they could not possibly lead a mass movement for civil rights if they were based out of the comfortable ranks of the Unitarian Church. And so, denominationally speaking, Martin went home. To the bravest corners of the African American Baptist Free Church tradition, he went home to find the institutions and the leaders who could go with him where he needed to go. And I'll let that story sit for just a moment. What almost was but never could have been. Maybe I'll come back to it another day, because there is a sermon in that story about identity and power and the role of progressive faith in shaping public thought. Another day. What is striking to me about that story today, right now, is the fact that even before he had a pulpit, even before he was a reverend or a doctor, King was already training his sights on the building of a mass movement for social change. Before any of us knew his name, he already knew to where his mission pointed, and even then, already young and unsure of himself, he knew what he needed in order to achieve that vision. It wasn't enough just to be brilliant. It was not just enough to have passion and skill and commitment. What the man needed was a bedrock tradition that was strong enough both to hold his own personal ministry and to hold every single thing he hoped to build in the movement. King knew he could not build the movement on charisma alone. He couldn't even hold his own faith alone. He needed a story that was bigger even than his own vision. He needed a place to hold him and to hold the people. King somehow knew that his corner of the civil rights struggle was to be a mass movement fueled and guided by a particular and unique understanding of the Christian tradition, an understanding strong enough to hold the movement even when it all started to feel like a house of cards. Strong enough to hold him even when the work was too exhausting for words. To hold it all up even when he himself was long gone. He needed a theology that could support the people's power, that could acknowledge the people's suffering first of all, so that they might find that power in the end measure. And he knew that he could not come up with that theology, that ground of operations. He could not imagine the base that the people needed all by himself. And what he needed, ultimately, was not the rationalistic, somewhat distant interpretation of our Unitarian forebears perched in their offices above Harvard Square. It also was not the high society Protestant Christianity so often preached then and now in mainline pulpits that had been conceding to the forces of oppression for generations, the base of operations, the theological ground beneath his feet that he needed certainly had nothing to do with the anti-institutional, non-denominational, charismatic Christianity that is so destructively and prominently allied to the nationalistic right today. No, what he needed was something different than all of those. What he needed was an interpretation of the Christian faith and the ministry of this man, Jesus, that integrated both spiritual growth and social transformation. He needed a faith that tended to his weary soul and that attended to the needs of the world. And ultimately, he found it, not on the heights of Beacon Hill, but in his own backyard at Boston University, where the great theologian Howard Thurman had published a book that would change it all. Jesus and the Disinherited is the title of Howard Thurman's seminal text, and once King found that book, he never did let it go. It was so formative on Dr. King's life that it said he carried it with him everywhere he went, right next to his heart, especially during the Montgomery bus boycott. He tucked it right there among his papers, reminding him of just what ground it was he stood upon every time he dared to speak, lest he be confused and imagine that the words were his alone. The good news in Howard Thurman's little book was an uncommon and precious thing. It wasn't happening just anywhere. And for all that King needed it, the good news also needed a great preacher to take it, to shape it, and to bring it to life. As Thurman wrote in those days leading up to the civil rights movement, I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times that I have heard a sermon on the meaning of religion, of Christianity, to that man who stands with his back against the wall. It is urgent that my meaning be made crystal clear, he said. The masses of men live with their backs constantly against the wall. They are poor, they are disinherited, they are dispossessed. What then does religion say to them? And that is the question that King needed to hear. That again and again throughout his ministry, that was the question that fueled all of his preaching and his advocacy year after bloody year. That is the question he always rose to pose again and again. What does religion say to the one whose back is up against the wall? How can spiritual comfort and social change merge so fully that one can never be pulled apart from another? What does religion say to the dispossessed? What does it say to the weary? What does it say to the ones who do not hold the power and yet must remain like a tree that's planted by the water, unmoved in conviction, no matter what winds of violence and hatred buffet around him? If King found the inspiration that he needed from Howard Thurman, Thurman himself found the inspiration he needed from Gandhi, who he'd traveled to India to meet in 1935, and Gandhi himself died believing that it was the struggle for civil rights right here in America where his doctrine of nonviolence would finally and fully come to fruition. None of them stood alone, but all of them rose upon the shoulders of the giants who came before them, over and against the power of religious and secular oppression that sought to hold them down. None of them stood alone. To Howard Thurman, and ultimately to Dr. King, the Christianity that had been used for so many years to disenfranchise the people at the margins was a corruption of the radical message at the heart of the gospel. As a Jewish man caught in the grasp of the mighty Roman Empire, Thurman's Jesus was in fact more liberator than deity. He came to guide an oppressed people forward to a new, unshackled destiny. And in that interpretation of the Christian faith, even something as seemingly banal and innocuous as the parable we heard today, the story of the Good Samaritan, so often boiled down in Sunday school to a banal invitation to be a basically decent human, in the hands of Howard Thurman and of Dr. King, even that message of Jesus was re-radicalized, becoming not an individual mandate to be kind of nice, but a fundamentally different story about a social order where a stranger from a strange land may be the only one who can save you. The parallels to the movement work King would be called to do are hard to miss. As a Jewish man in the grip of the Roman Empire, Thurman's Jesus did not just care for the oppressed, he was the oppressed. And so resistance wasn't a matter of pity or empathy or care or the doing of good works from a safe and casual distance. No, it was a matter of survival, just as it would be for the civil rights leaders who would follow that particular good news right into the mouth of the storm. Living in a climate of deep insecurity, Thurman wrote, Jesus, faced with so narrow a margin of civil guarantees, had to find some other basis upon which to establish a sense of well-being. He knew that the goals of religion as he understood them could never be worked out within the established order. Deep from within that order, he projected a dream, the logic of which would give to all the needful security they required. In that dream, there would be room for all, and no man would be a threat to his brother. Thurman projected a dream, which he believed to be planted in his heart by a tradition of a re-radicalized Jesus who dreamed that dream as well, a dream that would require another man, ultimately in the generation that came after him, to put it into words, a dream that not even the greatest among us dreamed up alone. So often, when Martin Luther King Day comes around, there is a habit of a kind of troubling hagiography that comes with this season. We speak of King as if he sprung Athena-like, fully formed from the mind of the holy at just the moment when history needed him most. And so often in our stories of him and in our history making, we go about honoring King as if he was a monolith, some great singularity, a unique individual risen above the fray to guide the nation forward, and all of it is true enough. He was singular. He was unique. He was exactly the man whom the moment demanded. But it diminishes him to claim that he existed outside of a longer, deeper, more collaborative story. He was shaped and guided and corrected and taught and disagreed with by his fellow organizers. He was humbled and afraid and a student of incredible teachers who showed him how to build the movement that moved the world. He was the product of a theological gift that was given to him by those who went before. A Jesus of revolution, grounded in the kind of creative nonviolence that ultimately leads to victory for the man whose back is up against the wall again and again and again. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. It is this topsy-turvy moral order of a re-radicalized faith that held King when he was so in need of purpose. Blessed is the frightened one. Blessed is the one who does not have command over her surroundings. Blessed is the laborer, not the CEO. Blessed is the voter, not the candidate. Blessed is the subject, not the king. It does not take a genius to see that these are the blessings not usually lifted up in our culture then or now. They are not the traits that get you elected, no matter what party you come from. And this is not the good news that people in power really want the populace as a whole to hear. And yet it is the same good news that Gandhi preached as he led people to the shore of the ocean to prove that no power or principality could make it illegal for seawater to evaporate into salt. It is the same good news that Harvey Milk preached in 1977 when he told the GLBT folks of San Francisco they didn't need to hide in the shadows because that city was as much theirs as anyone's. They also dreamed, just as King did, just as we do. This good news ringing through history tells us might does not make right. And the fact that you can do something does not mean you should. It tells us that the people without hate in their hearts can resist the powers all around them in ways that are real, impactful, and yes, soul-sustaining. It is also, importantly, the same good news that our whole country longs to hear right now. Our whole divided country, all of us, whether hate has clouded our ability to hear it or not, whether religion has been so thoroughly weaponized that good news has trouble breaking through. Yes, in some way, I am still working to understand. I actually suspect this is the same good news that many in the angry gathering mobs deeply wish they could hear right now. That if you are poor, you are important. If you feel unneeded, the world needs you. If your voice is unheard, someone will listen. If you are weary beyond imagining, someone will hold you up. If you are frightened, even the holy herself is frightened too. And if your back is up against the wall, you are held in a network of care that extends so far beyond you and even beyond your suffering, held by a liberating Savior who is the first one to weep when the miracles just do not come on time. This Martin Luther King weekend, as the forces of violence gather and the clouds hang over the Capitol and the heart of the nation, I am reminded that not even the greatest among us created himself, nor held himself up in the hardest times, nor invented the good news that shaped the world. Not even the heroes of every age carried the burden of heroics on their own shoulders. Not even the one who history lifted up as an emblem of his moment met that moment on his own. He carried with him the teachers, the prophets, the liberators and friends who had already been fighting for a very, very long time. Wherever we go, in the next week, and in the next years, and in the next administration, and over the span of time, let us remember that even the great ones do not go alone. May we too reach out for the bedrock assurance that will hold us when we fear we may fall. The traditions, the stories, the liberators of every age, the friends who have guided the people toward freedom more than once or twice before. Blessed indeed are those of us who find some radical good news along the way. Blessed truly are those who resist. Blessed are those who refuse to let their fear be twisted into collusion. Blessed are those who take a stand for each other and make a way so that all the ones who are on the outside might yet be invited in. And all those who are weary in these our times might indeed find rest. Blessed be. We do not go alone. And amen.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our.
We lift up our gratitude to the amazing, talented Melissa Mandel and Leah Morris, to our whole crew up in the balcony making the magic happen, Danny, Jeff, Marcia, Dave, Jesse back, working the Zoom room at home, to each and every one of you, to this team that brings the truth of our hearts to bear every single Sunday. And now, may the truths that make us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies, guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and all the shadows flee away. Amen.